My name is Trevor Cribben Merrill, and I'm the author of The Comforts of Exile. The Comforts of Exile is about 22-year-old Colin Phelps, who's a recent college graduate, and he's facing looming adult responsibilities and trying to figure out his life and what to do with it. And he has a college girlfriend to whom he's really very attached and really has dreams of maybe settling down with her in the future. She has her eye on a plum job in New York City, and she seems to be frustrated with his indecisiveness. And so she breaks up with him, and this launches him on a path to going to France, where he soon encounters a pair of sisters, and he becomes involved with one of them. And yet, his ex-girlfriend Julia is not entirely out of the picture either. The Comforts of Exile is a sequel to Minor Indignities, my first novel, which was published in 2020. And you do not have to have read Minor Indignities to enjoy this novel. However, if you have read Minor Indignities, then you will encounter many familiar characters in this novel, including the main character, Colin Phelps. One of my early readers, Josh Hochschild, described Colin Phelps as someone who has high self-consciousness and low self-awareness, and I think that perfectly encapsulates his character. It is a Catholic novel, I would say. It has several Catholic characters, but I think on a deeper level, it's a Catholic novel to the extent that the main character, Colin Phelps, is somebody who has sort of a Gnostic way of seeing the world. And he's already converted to the church, but he doesn't really have the sacramental sense in his bones. And this novel is sort of about his quest to achieve that. Maybe there are two main groups of novelists that I really love. One, the great French masters, Madame de Lafayette, the author of The Princess de Clèves, Stendhal, the author of The Red and the Black, and then Marcel Proust, maybe above all, who wrote In Search of Lost Time. But then I also love the great modern Catholic novelists, in particular Evelyn Waugh and Flannery O'Connor. And if there's one work of fiction that maybe hovers over this novel and that I was thinking about as I wrote it, it would be O'Connor's story, The Enduring Chill, which I have read many times, including doing live reads of it with groups of students. And connoisseurs or lovers of O'Connor will find at least a few somewhat subtle references to that story sprinkled throughout the novel. For me, the hardest part is structuring the plot. I try to make outlines, but I can never write to them, and the concept almost always collapses under the pressure of practice. And so I have to rewrite and get feedback and try again until finally the structure snaps into place. So I love Jane Austen's definition of what a novel is. It's something of a stretch. It's a very high bar, but it goes something like this. This is something that she wrote in the 5th chapter of her novel Northanger Abbey, and in what's known as her defense of the novel. And she says that a novel is some work in which the greatest powers of the mind are displayed, the most thorough knowledge of human nature, the happiest delineation of its varieties, and the liveliest effusions of wit and humor, all of those things conveyed to the world in the best chosen language. So that combination of intelligence, wisdom, and humor, and then finally beautiful style. I think that's a wonderful definition of all of the things that a novel can do and that it pulls together. I started writing this book a few months before my first novel, Minor Indignities, was published. And I was able to write about 15,000 words of it. I showed it to a friend. He wasn't terribly taken with it. But actually, the core scenes in those first 15,000 words ended up in the final novel, but viewed from a completely different perspective. So I like to write comic novels, or at least novels that make you smile a little bit. And as many people have observed, comedy is really something like pain plus estrangement. So you have to observe the character suffering from a perspective that allows you to smile at his predicament instead of feeling too sorry for him. So the character has to have enough agency that he can shoot himself in the foot. And really the difference between the way I wrote those scenes early on and the way they ended up in the final version of the novel is that the character suffers a lot more in the final version.